Eating disorders are a lot more common than you might think. And when we talk about eating disorders, we're talking about anorexia and bulimia mostly. So let's talk about what anorexia is, first of all.
Okay, anorexia is when we have a distorted image of our body. We get really skinny and we think we're still fat. It's like weird because everybody knows that you're skinny except for you. And I think it has a lot to do about control and controlling your diet and being able to do something in your life that you can control well.
Do you think, too, that maybe sometimes people that have anorexia, it's because, not that they're trying to lose weight and to look thin, but just because they're upset and they're not happy and so they've lost their appetite?
I think that's some of it, but I think it's much more than that for most people because we all have periods in life when we lose our appetite because we're upset. Something drastic has happened, the loss of a loved one or whatever, it will do that. But this is more than that. This is a distortion because you're thin when you look at yourself in the mirror. And when an anorexic looks at themselves in the mirror, they look skinny to most people, but they look like they're fat to them.
So a lot of times to cover it up, because they know they've been losing weight, they'll wear really baggy clothes. So there are certain things to kind of look for, because many times this will happen with young children. It's mostly girls, and many times it can even start when they're 8, but it frequently starts when they start junior high because it's a change.
I think it's when you go through puberty and you have all the social changes that are difficult for a lot of kids, particularly if you have a family that's pretty dysfunctional and you don't have grounding, you don't have that support that you need when things get tough.
And if you're self-conscious because you think you're overweight.
Yeah. Now, bulimia, on the other hand, is different. That's an eating disorder where there's a lot of binging going on and then vomiting.
And binging is like when you just eat a whole lot of food and then you throw it up, or you take laxatives to get it out that way.
Right, that's called purging when you do that.
Yeah, and many times people hide the food. So, sometimes they even throw up and hide it in bags and away, so they don't want anybody to know that they've been doing it.
Well, it shows you how serious the disorder is. When you have a distortion in your body image that's that much, or you have that much of a compulsion to be able to overeat to find satisfaction, something's up, and that's a sign, a key sign, that these people should have some kind of psychological support.
Well, this is why it's good to be aware of what it is and what to look for, some of the signs and symptoms, because like we said, it's a lot more common than you would think. I think 1/3 of the population.
Well, the 3% of the population.
Oh, 3%, sorry.
Yeah, not quite that many. But still, 3% is a lot. When you look at that, we have 300 million people in this country, that's 8 or 9 million people who have serious eating disorders, and that doesn't include, so you were probably including obesity in there. And then when you do that, you're absolutely correct.
Because that's considered an eating disorder also, even though it's the other direction.
Exactly. And the kinds of things that you see is people who have a fear of a weight gain, or they refuse to eat, and like Vicki says, they wear baggy clothes, they exercise too much, they'll have menstrual irregularities, they may lose hair from their scalp and it gets real fine, and they may get hair all over their body, including their face, it's real fine too. And they have this self-perception of being fat. That's the thing that really
and it can also damage their teeth because it's very acidic when you throw up, and sometimes they have calluses or sores on their hands
just from purging,
from throwing up.
That's putting their fingers down their throat and scraping on their teeth.
It's really a sad thing to have, and it's very difficult to break once they get in the habit of doing it. And so there's counseling for it, and there's group therapy for it.
It's expensive. You're looking at spending as much as $50,000 or $100,000 and being an inpatient for up to 6 to 12 months. These are serious disorders that tell you that things are really not going right.
And many times insurance doesn't cover it either.
Right, and the statistics are terrible. You're looking at 20% of these people dying within 20 years, and only 35% recovering, which means about half fight this their whole life, never get over it.
They can have heart problems from this.
Heart problems and gastrointestinal problems. There's suicides. There are lots of ways to go wrong. Cardiac rhythm disturbances are the most frightening. When you don't eat, or you lose a lot of your potassium and magnesium from the purging or the vomiting, that can lead to serious cardiac rhythm disturbances that are just, they can be life-threatening.
So if your child says that they're on a diet, just be aware, because maybe they really are just on a diet, But if they start wearing the baggy clothes, or they start looking too thin or getting circles under their eyes,
or their hair gets fine,
and they get dehydrated, and they get moody. They might be missing their periods. They're not having their periods.
Exactly. All right, so this is something we need to really keep in mind. That's it's more common than it's ever been before. It's certainly on the rise. I know years ago when we were in school, we hardly saw this. It was kind of a real exception to see it, and today it's not uncommon at all. And the time that it's the most important is when people are under a whole lot of stress and they're not getting the support, the acceptance that they need. They're not getting the understanding and compassion. These are kids that need to have tests. They need to see doctors. They need to be evaluated by psychologists. And if we'll pay attention to them and really look into what's happening, we can do a lot by changing the support that they have in their family, or finally outside of the family, because these illnesses are very difficult to get past, but it can be done.